Hey everybody, Jamal here with Creator. I'm joined by the awesome Amy Mikler, a lifestyle and kids photographer based in Austin, Texas. Amy, feel free to say hi.
Hello, everyone.
And she's actually joining us currently from a vacation. So thank you for taking the time to do this. She's currently based in California with an amazing view. Maybe she'll get to show us sometime during this talk. But Amy, before we get going with people's questions, talk about your background, what you do a little bit, how you got started, and we'll take it from there.
I started bossing neighborhood kids around probably when I was about 9 with a camera my grandparents gave me and thought I was going to be a photographer and have no idea why it went off the radar when I was picking colleges, but it did. And then I worked sales and marketing for big companies like Coca-Cola for several years and really didn't like anything as much as my hobby. So I finally decided I was going to go back to school in my late 20s, go back for a year and a half, assisted for a couple years, and have been doing it ever since and love it. So that's how I ended up in photography.
Wow, that's amazing. So, you hear about these late bloomer stories. So you were just like, I'm fed up with this.
Yeah,
This
I
is
kept
not my.
moving. I kept moving, and finally I was like, you know what? It's not the city I'm living in. I hate my job. I'd like to like my job. So we're just gonna so I went back to school and thought I'd see how I rated with everybody else, and I thought, no, I think I can do this. So I went for it.
That's interesting. So not only did you start late, but you also went back to school and studied photography and then also assisted. So I guess talk about that transition of actually going back to school in your late 20s and then assisting in kind of your 30s and kind of being a late bloomer, and talk about how you approach that. Because a
I
lot of
think,
people would be very scared to take that leap at that particular stage, but you did it and it worked.
yeah, I worked full time and I went to school full time, so it was kind of nuts. But I also was super disciplined by that point. I used every minute of my week. I mean, I was scheduled where I had like one nap a week to get me through the rest of the week, basically. But I was way more disciplined than probably a lot of the other people I was going to school with because I
Yeah.
really wanted it. Um, and same thing with assisting, that if I wasn't working as an assistant, then I was out shooting for portfolios. And I was very deliberate in how I used my time, and just covered a lot of ground really fast. And worked with a great couple photographers who were um, really open with info and even let me borrow gear and shoot on jobs if there wasn't anything I had to do. They say, "Yeah, go shoot for yourself." So um, I didn't sit around for that few years. I went back to school and assisted. I was on the go constantly, just shooting, 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 and marketing myself and reaching out to people and taking trips and self-assigning myself stories to build my portfolio. So um, yeah, I think in some ways probably my maturity helped me a bit. Just really go for it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And what was it like also doing this in Austin, Texas, which isn't necessarily a
Well, that
known photography community?
well, at that point, I was in Florida, which is probably even less of a photography community.
Yes.
So, um, Austin's definitely a more competitive market. My husband's job took us to Austin 5 years ago, so that's how I ended up in Austin. Um, I don't think I knew any better when I was starting out, though. I mean, I didn't know what was. I mean, I knew in my head like LA or New York was a bigger photography place, but a camera is a camera. You have to make something interesting no matter where you are. So I don't think that the location really struck me too much. And Florida has a lot of beauty, so that kind of helps with backgrounds. So, anyway.
And before we get into the questions, one final question would be, how did you get into wanting to shoot kids and children and kind of lifestyle? Was that the environment you were in, or just that's what you gravitated to naturally?
It actually happened by accident. I originally thought I would like to do travel work because it mixed a lot of things. I liked the people and the food and the landscapes, and I liked being able to do a lot of different things and travel combined more things than any other one aspect. So I was doing a lot of travel work. A lot of travel magazines were contacting me. So I was pretty busy with that. And some art directors I knew from that world ended up in the kids world with like Parents and Parenting magazine and things like that. And they'd worked with me and really liked working with me. And so they said, hey, would you be willing to do some stuff with kids? And kids are a blast. I mean, they're just wide open. They're transparent, so they're fun. And I like photographing people. And so I said, sure. So I started doing it. And so then that just kind of took off. So that's how I ended up. It wasn't a deliberate plan. I never aggressively went after it. It just happened.
So let's get into the first question here we have from Luis. He says, would you say overall that children are more collaborative in your shoot process or more in search of direction and guidance? Related to this, how do you handle a very shy kid? Great question.
Well, kids are just little people. You know, there's shy adults. There's adults that are kind of crazy that you're having to rein in. Like, oh no, let's do this. Kids are kind of the same way, I think. They're more transparent, so their emotions are right there. If they don't want to be there, it's obvious. They can hide it less. If they're really excited, they're really excited. But they generally like their photo taken. As far as shy kids, I think with shy kids, same as with shy adults, the firmer the boxes that you put them in and you give them lots of direction and tell them, okay, I want you to do this, they feel sort of safe if they have very firm direction, and then they don't feel like they're out there swinging in the breeze, and they feel less awkward. So with shy kids, I just keep giving them lots of direction and say, hey, let's try this, and try to also keep less people around staring at them. So if you can get down to where it's just a couple people around the camera. I mean, sometimes it could just be a photographer in some situations, but sometimes there's an art director and a wardrobe stylist and a makeup artist and a parent and all this stuff. And the more people you add, the more a shy kid really feels awkward. And so if possible, get rid of as many people as you can and start talking to the kid and create a rapport and start to build more of a relationship, and then give them directions and a box to bounce around in. And usually they're still going to be shy, but usually you'll get moments in between those sort of shy moments. You know, you'll get a genuine laugh, or you'll get them really focus on something, or so that's how I go about it with shy kids.
Cool. So I think we're going to have somebody actually from the audience jump on the stream. We have Zachary's interested to ask a question. So let's see if he jumps on shortly. In the meantime, let's queue up some more questions. So that was a great answer, actually. So next we have Donnie Green. He asked the question, what's the craziest funny thing that a child has ever done on a photo shoot? Oh, before you answer that question, we have Zach right here. So let's pass the torch to him.
Hi, Zach.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
My question was, what's your go-to trick for getting the kids to like behave and like do what you want on camera?
Oh gosh, I don't think there is a go-to trick, because kids are little people, and so some kids are really obedient. Some kids are wild. I think not having the parents in the room is probably the best thing you can do, because kids generally will have a bit more respect for people that aren't their parents. They don't. They're not in established modes of relationships, so. So yeah, I mean, it really depends on the kid, but I think probably the easiest thing is say, don't have the parents right next to you.
Cool, Zach. Thanks for jumping on. I hope that answered your question. Next up, let's attack that previous question, which is, what's the craziest, funniest thing that a child's ever done on set?
We had this one kid once on a shoot, and we were supposed to be recreating a scene from Ferris Bueller, and it was like 3-year-olds. And you know that scene from Ferris Bueller where they're walking through the museum holding hands? And this one little kid just was not having it. And he literally would just run across the set. Like, he never stopped for a second. he just ran. And the art director kept asking me, do you have it? And I was like, not really. Like, they literally are running across the set. So that shoot felt really chaotic. But I mean, kids are wild. I mean, they could just start jumping up and down or screaming or, so it's hard to remember exactly one crazy thing because kids are just, they can be really hyper. I remember being on a beach fashion shoot and this one kid just kept, like he would never stop making that face. And it was like, okay, I need you to like stop for just a second. So we have people off camera trying to get him to laugh at them. So at least he'd quit like sticking his tongue out at me and stuff like that. He was pretty wild as well. Those are the ones that I remember more than any specific crazy thing. It's just the kids who were just kind of out of control.
Yeah, the kids that are off the rails, yeah.
Yeah, totally off the rails.
So we have another question here from, here we go. Let's see, they're jumping around. Here we go. Sophia, she says, do you shoot only in natural light or a mix of artificial light and natural? Can you please describe your general approach to lighting? Good question.
It really depends. If it's studio, obviously there's lighting. You can't, unless it's a natural light studio, you're lighting it, which is almost always. If it's outside, I try to do all natural lighting. And so there's usually a lot of scrims and some bounces. But I try not to light when I'm outside, partially because the fun thing with kids is that they are spontaneous and they don't necessarily stay on their mark. And I actually want them to be able to move around, to have, more than just a few square inches to be in. So I'm never on a tripod when I'm shooting kids. My back may be dead by the end of a few days of shooting, but I try not to be on a tripod, and I try to give them some space to move around so that they don't end up being robotic, so they can just react and get those real moments. So natural light really helps you do that. If you can put up a big scrim, or your assistant can stay with you and keep them scrimmed, then I think it's prettier. And then you also get more real moments, which I think is the thing almost anybody's going to go for with kids. I can't quite hear you, Jamal. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Mic was off because I wanted to get the background sound. Danny asked, do you process kids' photos only from other images without giving away any secrets you might have? What are some of your favorite post-processing techniques?
I'm a terrible processor. I really try to shoot clean so that I have to do very little on the back end. So, I mean, other than just small tweaks in Lightroom, that's about all I do. If somebody wants something extensive, a processor will do it, but I shoot really clean. I try to make them look in camera roughly how I want them to look on a screen or on print. So I don't do anything crazy processing wise ever. As far as filters or anything like that. It's just simple contrast or exposure or bringing out shadows a tiny bit or something like that. That's about it.
And do you find, kind of a question I'm interested about, and do you find that that's kind of a part of your style and it's something that actually appeals to clients, the fact that it's very light on the retouching and processing?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot, actually, when I'm doing portfolio shows and meeting with agencies and potential clients. They ask me how much was done, and if I'm swapping heads or if I shoot really, really, I really do try to make it look on set in my camera roughly how it's going to look on the screen. So it's just small tweaks. Which clients I think generally like, because they would rather be on set and see what they're getting than have to try to envision how it's going to look in the end. If you have a really bad sky, I mean, they can picture that, okay, we're going to have to strip in a new sky or something. But
Yeah.
I don't want them to have to try to envision a whole bunch of other stuff. So.
Cool. Let's switch gears here. Tara asks a question. She says, how involved are parents during the shoots? Yeah, this is a good question. What words of advice do you have for parents who are having their children photographed?
So if it were like a family portrait thing, which I don't do much of, most of my work is commercial or magazines. Occasionally I'll do something for somebody I know who wants me to shoot their kid or something like that. But I mean, those parents are going to be right there. So if they are going to be there, and frequently I shoot my little nephews because, you know, I love them. So if that's the case, then I tell the parent, like, I have no personal space, and I tell them, you hang right over me, especially if it's a little baby or something. I'm like, you just hang right over me. You know what makes this baby laugh, or this little toddler laugh or whatever. You know, and they can do anything they want. You know, if the camera's right here, I want their face right there. But in general, I feel like if it's a family portrait, that the parents can be helpful because there's not a whole bunch of other people around, so the kid doesn't feel insecure or awkward. And parents usually know what to make their kid do to laugh, so they're useful. But it's the same as any other kid. You still just keep them doing stuff. You just never stop saying, hey, let's try this, let's do this, let's do this. I mean, kids have short attention spans. So.
And what about on the more commercial and magazine shoots?
On those, I think if you can not have the parent in the room, it's always better. The kids are just more obedient to strangers, just like they're more obedient to a teacher in a situation probably than a parent.
I don't know what school you've been to. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, there's just, I think you just don't have these sort of established relationships. It's like, I'm a stranger and I'm an authority figure or whatever. So it's like, okay, we're going to do this, and this is where we're going to stand, this is what we're going to do. And if mom is there and they don't like what you're asking them to do, they're just looking at mom the whole time, or dad. So if mom and dad are out of the sight line, then it's better. Babies are different. I mean, baby wranglers can be great, but sometimes like a parent's the best baby wrangler. So babies are a total wild card. I mean, I don't think there's any such thing as a professional baby model in my experience. But with kids, I would say if it's a commercial set, try to have the parents out of sight.
Cool. All right, I want to take a quick jump over to your website and just kind of go over some of the images. We've been talking about natural light and all this, and I think the best approach would be to actually show people what we're talking about there. So just give me a second while I pull up your website in the screen share. All right. So there's that. And yeah, you can quickly kind of see those natural light elements. Are there any particular sections that you think would be cool for people to see and for me to go through?
Well, since we're talking about kids, you could probably just go to the kids lifestyle tab.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah, and I'll scroll through. Cool. I'll scroll through this. I love this image. She's reading the newspaper.
That one was natural light with some video lighting because the room was a bit too dark. So just tried to marry the two so it would look somewhat natural.
And as far as the concept with this shot, how did this come about? How did you work with her to kind of get this grown-up shot? She's got her legs kicked up. How involved was the kid versus you in coming up with the process, or the art director?
Yeah, that was this one was actually a portfolio shoot, And I just had it in my head that it would be kind of fun to do something like that, have a kid do something that an adult would do. And this little kid was great. She loved modeling. She's one of the rarities who's 5 who's in it because she loves it. The mom was like, I'm not driving this boat. And so this little kid was wide open to anything I threw at her. So we tried a couple different things, and she was just, I don't know, she was great. She was cute. I just kept telling her to flip the page and look around the page, and you know, threw her feet up. She couldn't get her feet up unless we got the pillows because all the chairs were too low. So she was in a really weird position unless we stuck all the pillows under her. So the stylist and I were getting her situated, and then she just went with it. She was great.
Cool. All right, let's see. I'll keep jumping through some more photos here. And if there's any you want me to stop on that have an interesting story, feel free.
That was a really shy kid right there with the cape. He was really, really shy and felt uncomfortable. And so I just kept having him do stuff. It was supposed to be kind of a superhero kind of thing, and we're in PJs. And so we ended up outside just so I could let him move around. And we ended up with some great stuff. So, but he was a shy kid.
Got you. And so how long did this particular shoot take to get him warmed up?
Well, it started raining about 10 minutes after we went outside, so we didn't have a lot of time. But, I mean, if you have a kid, I told them, all right, run like you're Superman. All right, yell for me. And so, I mean, we did it like probably 4 times, and then I felt I had it, and then it started raining. So we went on to something else. But there was, I mean, I had several shots to choose from for that one. So.
Cool. Let me continue to kind of keep going through here.
That was the kid who was crazy. That kid, and then he's on the next page. He was the one who was like, ah, the entire time. So that was the photo on the left there, that was like half a second of calm in between the crazy. But that's all you need, right? You just need a second. That was a fashion shoot down in Miami. So.
And with these shoots, do you find that you have to be fast because the kids' attention spans are lightning quick?
You can't ever stop looking, and you have to be ready to shoot that button any second. If you want to get the shots, and sometimes it's the moments you're not directing that you find. Like him with the camera, the previous photo was just a grab. That wasn't one of the ones that we actually had planned to shoot, but I saw him pick up the camera and thought that's a shot, so I took it. So I think with kids even more so than adults, you have to never stop looking and being ready to go. That was the magazine one.
Yeah. I like when you do some of these kind of, you're not showing the kid, you're just kind of showing them do something. Like there's another image you have like rain boots or something. Kind of talk about some of these kind of still life-esque angles that you go for sometimes.
Well, I think it's nice if you got shallow depth of field and are on some sort of focus. Like in this one, the idea, this was a magazine shoot, the idea was like kids want to do things for themselves. And so they concepted this idea of a kid trying to tie his shoes. So then on set, then we added the whole component of, let's make it, he's messing the whole process up. And this was a little guy. I mean, he was probably 3. So he wasn't that old. So we just wound the stuff around and then just told him to keep pulling on the laces. And I just kept having him move. And we actually asked him to try and tie it himself. And it made even more of a mess. And I just kept shooting. But so I think so oftentimes the details tell the story. If that shot is really wide, you don't see the messy shoe. It's just a kid trying to tie a shoe. So in some cases, I think getting in tight actually tells the story better.
Sure. All right, I'm going to switch off of the screen share. And we have a few more questions that we can try to quickly get through. So Carlos says, what's the biggest challenge you face as a photographer and how have you been able to overcome it? Or are you still working through it or through them?
I feel like the technical side of photography is probably in some ways the easiest aspect. The hardest part is the marketing part and figuring that out. And I don't think you ever totally figure that out because the industry changes. I mean, nobody saw social media being so huge, 10, 15 years ago. So, I mean, I probably, like most photographers, I spend the bulk of my time either producing, helping, get the next shoot going, or processing the last shoot, or, and then marketing. And so just finding the right balance, making sure everybody's getting everything they need, that you're not, you can get so busy shooting and then taking care of all the front end and back end stuff that then it's like, I've not reached out to anybody in a while. And it's been a while since I've sent anything out or whatever. So getting in a groove with the marketing stuff and staying consistent is, I think, the hardest challenge. And that probably won't ever change.
Great. And Amanda says, is it hard to, you kind of mentioned getting busy, is it hard to balance everything while also actually having a family too? I mean, you are a photographer late in your 20s when you were getting it going, you had a marriage, versus say like some 20-year-old coming out of college who's independent, doesn't have all these bills and stuff. How was, I guess, that transition, and then how have you been able to kind of keep that up?
Well, I would say kids are more resilient than, which is a good thing. My husband's super, super supportive of my career, which is key. And I'm just flexible by nature. So, and I'm generally pretty good with logistics, but it's not easy. If I have a bunch of shoots and my husband's traveling and I'm traveling, and to trying to, not only am I trying to keep my head clear and make sure I've got everything I need for the shoot, and that I'm really thinking, because it's not just showing up for the shoot, you have to be thinking about the shots and the shot list beforehand, and kind of working through ideas and problem solving and things that you might think you'd be dealing with, and then remembering all the gear you need and everything. And so if you're doing that while you're trying to get kids to soccer games and remember to get dinner made and blah, blah, blah. So that's probably just an ongoing process, but it's not really easy. Once I'm away from home and on a shoot, then I don't really think about anything but the shoot. Kind of life just at home, I'm too focused on the job. And so in some ways it's probably a bit easier that I travel a lot for work, because when I am on set and I am on assignment somewhere in another state or another city, I am able to just focus 100% on work. And then when I'm home, I can focus more on home. So it might be harder if I was shot in town a lot and was constantly juggling both things at once. But it's an ongoing, some months are easier than others, some weeks are easier than others. So.
And here, one more question here we have from Mark Lundberg. He asked, exactly what is it you want to say with your photographs, and how do you actually get your photographs to do that?
Well, I like my life. I love beauty and fun and happiness and sunlight. And so that's what I gravitate towards in photos. I think without meaning to, that we all put ourselves in our photos. I think I don't really think of myself as an artist. I think of myself as a photographer, but I think anyone doing something creative, that you impart part of yourself into it. So it ends up becoming a reflective of how you see things and what your interests are. And I love bright, happy, inviting photographs. So that's how my photographs usually end up looking. That's usually where I start. I might end up somewhere different, but that's usually where I start. And I just want people who look at my photos to want to be part of them, to like them and think, I wish I was eating that, doing that, being there, doing that with my kids or whatever. Like, I want people to look at my photographs and it make them smile, and then that sense of enjoying life and finding the little things to enjoy. Like that's what I would hope that people get when they look at my photographs.
And then I guess as kind of a final roundup of this Q&A, which has been great, we got through a lot of questions in a short amount of time. Where do you see yourself going with photography? You mentioned offline, you're trying to get into doing more video. Obviously, you mentioned social medias have an impact, and there's always a need to market yourself. I guess kind of where do you see this industry going, and yourself in it, and how you approach it, evolve as a creative?
Well, in some ways I'm not really sure. I love, sometimes I think why did I start shooting kids? It's hard to imagine walking backwards in a crab position at 60. So sometimes I'm like, how long can I do this? But for now, it's fine. But I feel like in general right now, social media is kind of driving the industry a lot. That it's not that print's dead, because it's not. But there's just a whole nother beast to feed. So people want more and more and more crammed into less and less time. So you just have these amazing shot lists, and it's just cover some ground. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So I think for me, I try to be really flexible and enjoy what I'm doing. And people still want me to take pretty pictures, well, you know, no matter who I'm shooting for or where I'm shooting. So, you know, and that's never going to stop. I'm always going to try to shoot something that's pretty. So it kind of doesn't matter. So I'm not really sure where the industry totally is going to go. But in some ways, I feel like there's a lot of the shoots maybe pay less than they used to, but the beast is bigger now than it used to be. So, and that's fine. I mean, that's just life. Things move and change. Nothing ever stays the same. So you just got to be flexible and roll with it. So, and I'm so blessed to get to do this for a career. I love that I get to be a photographer. So I'm happy to shoot whatever for whoever. I'm always just pleased I get to do it for a living.
Awesome. That's a great way to kind of close it out. So everybody who's watching, the replay will be available to watch about 5 or 10 minutes after this. Definitely feel free to click the career tab and follow Amy on her Instagram, and check out her website for more photos, which is just amymikler.com, I believe, correct?
Yep.
And yeah, hopefully, Amy, we can get you back on here sometime down the road to catch up and see what new projects you have going on.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, Amy.
Bye.